Hi everyone, thank you all for coming, and special thanks to the Bureau, who this event is in proud partnership with. The Bureau provides co-working at the heart of London's design district and offers flexible design-centric workspaces, allowing members to develop their careers surrounded by like-minded individuals. You can book a 3-day pass to try out at reception. I'm Martha. I am a former trainee here at TPF, and I am currently a anthropology and visual practice student. For those of you who don't know, the Photography Foundation was founded to provide pathways to professional photography for less advantaged young adults, offering educational, practical experiences and routes to career in the creative industries. TPF Talks is a platform to amplify underrepresented voice and professionals working in the industry and encourage the next generation of photographers to be a part of the conversation and build their networking skills. If you do want to find out more about opportunities to get involved through volunteering or donating, or you have a query or question about the program, please feel free to ask anyone in wearing the lanyards, TPF lanyards after the talk. I'm soon going to hand over to our speaker, but I'm just going to do some housekeeping. Toilets are round the back, fire exits are there and there. The talk will end at approximately 1:30, and you're free to continue networking and using the space up until 2. And now for this event, we are delighted to be joined by our speaker today, Yushy, a London-based photographer specialising in documenting a wide range of subcultures from editorial fashion shoots to underground raves, often capturing intimate moments. His works with clients such as Vice, BoilerRoom, Levi, and the Museum of Youth Culture. During this talk, he'll share his journey from documenting the drum and bass scene in Cardiff as a student and being commissioned for a plethora of gigs and festivals, and will share his advice on honing your craft and working as a freelancer. Take it away.
Hello. Thank you for that. That was great. Not worried at all now. But I'm going to start off with like a quick intro to a music photographer, a documentary on Mick Rock, who basically photographed the world of rock and roll for the past 50 years, from David Bowie, Queen, and it's what he says here kind of stuck with me ever since I first watched it when I was in university. Let's give this a listen. I went the wrong way.
It's an energy thing. It moves around a lot. Process of identification is, I'm right there with you. In the height of the moment, I say assassin because that's what I feel like. I'm locked in, got my sights on you, and I'm going to take you out. Early on, I tapped into that instinct, and that's where I want to go every time. I want that feeling. Because I'm just after that one thing. I'm not after your soul. I'm after your fucking aura.
Perfect, thank you. So we'll start off, this is how it works. Ooh. With the beginning, so running through pictures, I'll say I started off through college. In college I started I did a course on creative media production where I learned loads of stuff from music, production, sound engineering, to film, photography, media and journalism, and it was really that course which kind of pushed me into photography and journalism to where I am now. So just running through my portfolio and stuff I do now, working with festivals, working with artists, being commissioned to photograph protests in a very hectic space, again festivals, and working with artists. So my drum and bass project, Rave to the Grave, started when I was in university. I went to university in Cardiff, and it was like past my freshers week where I was asked by my mum to get a job essentially, and by chance I bumped into a promoter and he asked me to take pictures of his event, and turned up at this event and it was a drum and bass rave, and I've never been to a drum and bass rave before that, and going in I was terrified. I've never seen people move or dance like that, or like be so intense on the dance floor, and it was really out of my comfort zone, but I loved it. It was so alien to me and so intimate at the same time, but I kind of fell in love with these moments. And over the course of 3 years, I ended up photographing every single rave in Cardiff, and it was like 3 times a week. I was doing that on top of university and on top of being somewhat social, so I wasn't sleeping much. I was just going from like rave to club to my classes to my lectures to another rave, and this expanded from like big clubs to like squat parties like this. I was really I felt really integral to the scene, and that's just through like trust and word of mouth, and it took a while. But over time, people saw me as part of the drum and bass scene, coming from London to a small Welsh city, the capital, and people saw me as a member of that family and that community. And it was like moments in these events where I got booked in always by the promoters, and I always photographed first for the promoters, and then from that I did my own thing. I looked for moments like this where it's 6 a.m, the club's closing, and these guys are just chilling on the floor. And that's how kind of my work kind of looked for the next like 5-6 years until now, where I always was working for someone else in sense of I got booked into a club, but then I always did my own thing inside of that club. You should never do this, by the way. It's not smart. And this project, I was shot it all through university, and when I came back from uni, lockdown hit, and I was like thinking about all of these pictures I took and all of these events I've been to, and all these venues which are now closed and now turned to like a coffee shop, and they don't exist anymore. And I had all these flyers, and I was sitting on these, and I thought I need to kind of make something in homage to the community. So over lockdown, I started my book, Rave to the Grave, which is also available. It became like a passion project, which got picked up really well through like Mixmag, through Huck, through The Guardian, which is crazy, and this kind of led on to other work with communities and cultures, with places like BoilerRoom, who saw my work in Cardiff and then approached me to photograph other events they're doing, focusing on different like communities like this one. And then work through BoilerRoom kind of led to working with festivals and DJs, and it was my grassroots project which kind of kick-started everything, working through the community and then through other communities, which kind of led to these big like projects. And from that, working with like cultural brands like Fred Perry, which they saw my rave work, and they again said, we want you to do this for us. And same with Berghaus. And the same again with BoilerRoom, with like other artists approaching, or like me approaching them with a pitch and a proposal. I'll go more into this, but it all started through like grassroots projects and ideas that I had about finding my niche through my community work, which was the rave work, and how I went with the goal of photographing it for myself and the promoters. So there's always two things I had to do at these events, at these protests. And that's the same through all of these like places. I go there for myself and for the story in there. So like Notting Hill Carnival, I was sent there by Vice to photograph it, and I was like, cool, I know what pictures will look great, but I know what pictures I want to keep for myself and keep for an archive. And it's always that idea about doing more than what's expected, which I feel is still quite important nowadays. It's doing more than what someone wants you to do, which kind of leads to more work, but not in the sense that you're being pushed over and being like almost worked to the bone. But if you're at an event, if you're at a festival, it's your first time and you're asked to photograph a few artists, the biggest thing you can do is do that. But finding these moments like that, like this was my first festival I did ever, and it was a warehouse festival in Tottenham, absolute shithole. But I photographed a few artists which they told me to do, and then I photographed this, and they preferred stuff like this over the artist work, and then they've carried on asking me to come to these events for moments like this. Right, another video here about finding motivation in the digital world.
He's the same, that motivation and inspiration are the unreliable mistress. Motivation, and especially inspiration, is going to come and go in the best of times. There's going to be times where you just don't feel like it. There's going to be times where you're going to be asking yourself, what's the point? Or is this actually the most productive use of my time? Or even on a more specific level, is this the right place for me to be? All those kinds of thoughts. And all of that just comes down to a sort of resistance that's really, that we all share. It's a very natural thing. I think the better thing to focus on is commitment. Commitment to having a practice. And there's so many benefits to that besides pictures. If I relied on motivation, I wouldn't have half the pictures I have now, because there's lots of times where I'm walking out the door to just live out the commitment to myself that I made in doing this practice. There was a time when I had a full-time day job, and by the time anyone sees this video, it'll be 10 years since I got fired from that job, which was maybe the best thing that ever happened to me, because I thought I was going to spend the rest of that year figuring out what the next thing was going to be, and I never figured it out. I'm still out here taking pictures instead. I don't need motivation beyond remembering that when I had that job, all I wanted was to be out here. And then you get out here and you're like, wait, I don't feel like being out here. But I keep remembering that guy.
So that's with a street photographer, and I find street photography and music photography kind of blends into one big niche. It's a big combination of culture and sounds and also ethics. But it's something that I feel like everyone should have, like that belief system, is that whatever we do now, like taking pictures is a privilege, and me speaking here is a privilege. And I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful to do what I do, but when I'm stuck and I'm stuck like taking pictures, and I don't know what to do, and I always hate the fact that I have to pick up my camera. I look at the stuff I've done, I look at my friends and the work they've done, and I'm like, that drive to not be better, but to do more than expected, like coming back to it, doing more than almost like what your parents think of you, doing more what your friends think of you, and it's building that like ethos of, oh, I'm gonna not prove them wrong, but I'm gonna prove them better. Like I'm gonna do something that's unexpected, something so amazing, and it doesn't have to be like traveling to like Ukraine and photographing that, but it could be photographing a local like basketball team, and that will have more of a cultural impact on the team, on the people around that community, than someone reading a story if you were to travel to Ukraine, because it's a local thing. And some motivation can be found everywhere, like through other works. Like these are some of like photographers I know, I'm very thankful to know, and like very thankful to have seen, and seeing work like this, which is like archived, which is away from social media. I think social media is a bit of a scam, a bit terrifying to just constantly be on. I'm sure everyone feels the same, like just being surrounded by all of these like algorithms and feeds, and you're getting shown stuff which you love, but you're like, how does it know? It's listening. And you're constantly having to be on social media for your work, but also can't stand it. And it's that balance you have to find where you need it to show that you're a working photographer, but you don't want your work to be kind of swamped in that never-ending feed. So it's always about balance, and it's something that I'm still trying to find. And the music world's brutal. I've said it there. It's constantly like, to this day I get ignored. I have like issues where I'm not paid fairly, and always people decide to use my work without credit, and it's something that I think everyone experiences very unfairly, and it's not right, but it's how the music and like photography industry is kind of built on its exploitation, and it's through like places like this, places like unions, and just speaking to other photographers where we can build like a really fair, like strong community. And I think now out of anything is our chance to do that, because if you look back on like photographers, this time now is the most like diverse, strongest like range of photographers we've ever experienced, and it's really wholesome, it's really powerful, and it's scaring a lot of the older photographers as well. And I think one thing I've always experienced is I try not to be too hurt when I am ignored, when people like reply or they don't reply. I always find it's being determined, but not like, don't be a beg. I think that's what kids say. But it's like being formal, being all of these things, but being determined. Don't be disheartened if someone doesn't reply. And this email is my first email ever from Vice. And I first got these contacts through, I stole it from university essentially. They had like this press release with loads of cool emails on it, and I saw the emails, and it had like Pix Mag, DJ Mag, The Guardian. I was like, I will take that. And I emailed everyone until they replied, and no one replied until I saw this editor's email on Twitter, just by chance. And I emailed him, and he replied straight away. And that whole process took 2 years. And then over the course of 2 years till now, I'm now a contributor to Vice, a quite regular one. So it took a span of 5 years to do that, but I kind of just always tried. And there was a space of like me emailing the editors 3 times a week until they replied. And when they did, they would just say no. And now I've got their WhatsApps. But it's one big thing. It's like, why do you guys photograph? Why do I photograph? What brings you to your music community? What brings you to a rave, a club, or a festival? What drives you to this? And what do you photograph? Essentially, there's so many things, and some of the most regular stuff in music is stuff like these, like press photos. Every artist in the world needs press photos, and you can see an artist you like, a local one, or like someone you can aspire to, and just drop them a DM. It's always, I find, very personal when you reach out to an artist directly and ask them, let me take pictures of you. And if they're local, I'd say that they're most likely to reply because they want pictures and you want to photograph them. Music videos, again, much like press photos, every artist is going to have a music video, and it's very easy to drop them a message saying, hey, let me get on that music video, let me get on that BTS, and if they don't reply, we move on. And it's again, it's just about being there on set. And these are some of the pictures I've taken on some recent music videos. And live music can span to like club nights, to festivals, or just to standard shows. And this is probably the hardest thing to get into, because there's so much, this is such a difference from each of them. But they're the most common. Again, going from like local bands and pubs to like mega festivals, it's about building that community work I talked about at the beginning, and building it, and then kind of like showing it to other platforms, to other artists, and then seeing where that leads, and doing more than what's expected. And like commercial work, which are very new to me, but also very terrifying. Like I shot this last Saturday, or 2 Saturdays ago, at Darwin Festival, which is a South Asian community festival, and I got asked by a ticket company called Dice to just go there and take pictures off the back of work I've already done. They see my work at another festival, which I came to for free, and they were like, we want that, but just for us. And they just saw it through my Instagram, and they just got in touch. And editorial, and again, all very new to me. And some of these I pitched to the editors at like Vice and nagged them for months to do. And other times they've seen work I've already done through my social media, and they wanted it for themselves. And again, personal projects, I think everything leads to stuff I've already done, or it's my passion. Like the stuff, my rave work, I think everyone kind of always draws back to that, and how they've seen something that I've already done and kind of want me to do it for them, or their brand, or their community, which is great, but it always brings to like local stories and local voices that want a story to be told. And a little pyramid of what gets you the job and things that I feel like that matters is a portfolio, a strong, nice portfolio. Always, it kind of entices people. It's not the biggest thing that gets you the job, but it's important. The personality of your work and like the personality of yourself. Like if you get to like a job and it's horrible and it's raining and you're like, why am I doing this? You're questioning your whole life and you're smiling. You see another photographer, and they're smiling, and you're like, that's how I want to be. That's the energy I want to bring to the table, and it's what kind of makes other people want you again. Like the amount of times I've like completely messed up at these like big Vice jobs, but I kind of came there with a positive attitude is kind of what kept me on the books. They still haven't paid though, but it kind of what keeps me going is like I'm nice to the editors, I'm nice to the people around me, and I kind of want that energy to carry on. I don't want to bring any bad vibes at all. And like the research I put in, like especially the raves when I first started in Cardiff, I was researching into the DJs like an absolute nerd. I was like, oh, this DJ is from Essex. He played this tune, and because I didn't know anything of it, and I carry that on. Like when I speak to artists now, I'm like, oh, did you know this guy this guy's like 60 years old, and it completely unnecessary. But I feel like the research you put into passion projects, to your personal work, but your commercial work, sorry. It kind of has an effect on people, and it shows people that you're committed. It shows people that the stuff you want to do is like full on, and you understand the briefs, you understand the people around you, and the willingness to learn new things and be wrong. Like every time I get told and do something wrong, I feel like that's a win, because it's a chance for me to learn and like kind of change what I'm doing, and basically be told that I'm an idiot is something that I feel like it's a strong thing to do. I never want to go into a job and be told I'm right, and I feel like that's everyone should be like that to an extent. No one should be told they're an idiot, but everyone should be told that there's always that ability to learn new things. And the context of your work, as put it at the bottom, because I feel like the rave stuff, my rave to the grave, when I was doing it, no one cared at all. No one cared. My friends are calling me out for it. They're like, "Oh, you're just getting drunk at these events." Nah, not really. But they were saying this is useless. And during COVID, when clubs were closed, and I was showing these pictures of these like really intimate raves, people were like, "Oh, that's what matters. That's what we miss. That's the culture we miss." And they could be in Sao Paulo, and they were seeing my pictures. They're like, "That's what we want. We want to be in those spaces again." And it's that context which matters, and kind of what through everyone's work. It's the context. You could be photographing an artist at Wireless, and it's that context in 5 years which matters, because that artist is a different person then. That artist could have died, and that image, that stuff you photographed, matters then. It matters more then than it does now. And so that context which always everyone should remember, and how you keep your work and how you show your work. Things that don't matter, alternatively. Camera equipment, no one really should care what they're shooting on at all. I don't want that to be a deterrent. If you have an amazing camera, great. Yeah, if you don't, that shouldn't stop you. Like the most of my stuff I shoot is on a 12-year-old camera, and it's a brick, and it still works, and I'm very thankful for that. But like, if you see someone with a Sony A7R, and you're like, "Oh, I want that. Look at those low light pictures." That shouldn't matter. Don't let the gear get in the way of the subject and the context. And where you live, like if you're in London and you're seeing events in Northampton, you're like, "Oh, I should be in Northampton. I should be seeing these things," but you're missing the point of the work in your local community. That's what matters. Is the stuff local to you, and the stuff the stories you're hearing, because people in Northampton are going to be looking at your work, and you're like, "Oh, I should be in London." It's always the grass is always greener, essentially. Trends, social media. I'm gonna say these two together. Like, if you see, like I think a few years ago there was like that wiggle effect that was like massive on Instagram, where people was making those GIF images. That's not popular anymore, is it? And it's these trends that people jump on and they kind of immediately forget. And it's like that TikTokification of like ideas, which is so fast paced. And if you jump on these trends, you can really have no visual identity. and it shouldn't matter what you like. If you like heavy metal music and like photographing these heavy metal bands, there's nothing stopping you just to be that heavy metal photographer, because other people are going to see that work. And you're like, oh, this matters, because it's different, and you're not jumping into these raves, you're not jumping into these DJs. And there's so many ways to show your work now, through like social media, like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, if you still use Facebook. But annoyingly, that's how we show our work, through social media, unless you decide to fly post your photos in Shoreditch. Blogging is a huge thing, and it's so cheap and so easy to start a blog about your experiences in the world of music, your experiences in the world of photography, and how each shoot, each idea matters to you. Email editors, I think people forget, everyone's, all these editors are available through social media. They want people to see their work, and they're not hiding it. You can go on Twitter and type in The Guardian and type in emails, and all of these guys will show up, and you just shoot them an email every day until you reply, even 4 times a day if you really want. And archive, I think a lot of my work now is archived for a year or so, which is annoying because I can never enjoy a picture. I always try to save it and not post it as long as possible. But archiving music work now, I think archiving music work now is really important, like I said, because you could be at an event or a moment in time, and in 5 years later, that venue, that moment in time will have a completely different meaning. God forbid we're in another lockdown, and our pictures of these dance clubs, these festivals, will have such a more powerful meaning, because people will miss that again. And open calls as well. Everyone's always looking for work. These email editors are always looking for work and looking for ideas. And you can show them work. You can just take, I'm photographing this idea, I'm photographing these bands, and they may not reply the first time, but the third time, or the fourth time, or how many times it takes, they will reply. They will take care, and they will care about the stuff you do locally. And I'll finish it off with a quick last video, I swear. But it's a video on how I feel connected, or how I feel people should be connected in their world, wherever it might be. Yeah, let's give it a watch.
Inevitably you get asked, aren't you missing everything? Aren't you removing yourself from life? I feel like an active participant in a community, and I feel like a little amoeba in a bigger organism. It's all an unbelievable sci-fi brain explosion, and I just try to not miss it. So I pay attention.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. It was really enlightening, and thank you for sharing your journey. I'm just going to open the floor to any questions you may have.
Yeah, lovely stuff, really awesome. So just wanted to kind of explore a little bit about your influences.
Mm-hmm.
You showed Ruben Radding, Mick Rock, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Who else are kind of your people?
So, I love street photography. I think street photography is my personal hobby, which is kind of crazy. But a lot of street photographers, like Daniel Arnold is the last guy we saw. Daniel Arnold is a New York-based street photographer who kind of went from being this crazy guy shooting film in the mid-2000s to now working with Vogue on the Met Gala and he's like the guy in New York to be in these places. And it's these photographers like Mick Rock, Danny Arnold, Ruben, are like really, Simon Wheatley as well, whose pictures were in the mood board. And Simon photographed basically the birth of grime in London, and you've probably seen his pictures online. He was like on set of Kid Out Hoods, if you guys remember that movie. But Simon's work is all archived, and Daniel's work is all archived, and so is Mick Rock. And it's this idea of like looking back at an image and saying, "Oh, that time was amazing." Like not looking at it now, is like, that time was amazing. Like seeing these old brick phones and Simon's work, and seeing people in these like crazy, like old, like Moschino, like fits, and you're like, that's basically happening again. But look how amazing that time looked. And it's that archive work which I like come back to, but which I love.
Hello. Thank you very much for the talk. Really interesting. I have a question about like kind of the beginnings, how to like set yourself up to even be a photographer, because like you mentioned that it started for you from the raves and then you moved to other things. And then like personally, I'm really into the London rave scene and like the techno which is here. I think it's a really interesting thing which is right now going, especially after the pandemic. But when I was going for the rave parties, and like with my experience as kind of like street photography for myself, I still find it really hard to even get to that point where you're invited to the places themselves from where you can make connections to do more things. For example, for me, when I go to these events, usually they already have photographers or like people who do it, and in fact they would say, do not take any photos because like we are taking the photos for you. So for people who are like emerging and have not established themselves yet, I feel like it's like a barrier which, like how would you surpass that? Or like,
so I experienced exactly that, because when I first started in university, there was other photographers in these events. I wasn't the only one, and I don't want to claim that I was the only one. But what they were doing was like club pictures, and like, I don't want to say even generic, but like very like pictures of a DJ, pictures of a club. And what I said to them was, I'll do all of that essentially for free for the first 2 years, and then I'm going to do my stuff. And it's the stuff that I did for myself, which they preferred. And then slowly other events came and they saw my work. They were like, we want your stuff for us, as well as the DJs and clubby stuff, but we want your like intimate moments for us. And it's finding these events, because there's like loads of events, and doing the research into these events, which will kind of like show when they turn up. Like if you go on like Resident Advisor, it will show you like 4 events like every 3 or 4 hours, and you can go like really specific and like really niche into these events. And I think through techno, there's so many elements you can go to. And if you go to like the really big, broad festivals, they're quite commercial, but starting off at these small, like local ones, which have like 4 people going to, have like 40 people going to, will be a bigger story and a journey arc to start with. So like starting really small and building that community around you, building these like people and brands and promoters, because promoters I worked with in Cardiff, who are like friends, now work for Glastonbury Festival. And that's over the course of almost like 7 years. And they did book me for Glastonbury, bastards. But they still know me, they still like my work, and it's building that really organic community, which started like tiny. Like the first few events I went to, I wasn't just like the only brown person there, but I was like one of like 10 people there, and I made it look much busier, I know. But at these events, though, it was like no one caring. It was another photographer. It was tiny, but over the course of like 4 years, they kind of quadrupled in size and popularity. Not through my work, just chance. But started off really small and then built up.
Did you always ask for like permission to take photos beforehand, before you went to the event?
So, it was like when I first got asked by the promoter, they knew I was coming. But but after that, I kind of saw these events kicking off, and I'm like, I need to be at these events, but these events already have a photographer, and I know they didn't reply to my Facebook message. I know Facebook, but they didn't reply to my messages. So what I used to do is very sneaky. I used to put my camera around my neck, start panting like I'm out of breath, and I run to the door of the security, and just say, "Oh, I'm late to be there," and like he'll see me out of breath, and like, you see the camera around my neck, and we'll just, all right, after you, and just let me in, and I'll just stay hidden until like people kind of forgot I was there, and then started taking pictures. And I was like always my ethos like fly on the wall. I never want to be the center of attention. Even now, I'm like sweating through my jumper. But like a lot of the times I did sneak in, and then people just wanted me there because they just saw my pictures and they wanted me at these places. But again, this was just such a long period of time, and there was times where I got to these events, and a security guard would see me, see the camera, and he would like tell me to like, piss off. But then it turned up again within a few hours, tried it again, or I brought a ticket sometimes, and then brought my camera in with me. And it's like these things are like pushing my determination, like how willing I am to get into these places just for like one picture. And a lot of the time I didn't get anything, and it was a complete waste of time, energy, and like my time where I really should be studying. So sometimes I did sneak in. Even now, last Saturday, I snuck into a squat rave, which is my next series of work. But again, same ethos. I had the camera around my neck, and I just kind of ran into the door and was like, "Oh, this DJ wants to be on." And these guys were like, "Oh yeah, sure, you can come in. Just go through that hole." And I'm like, cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a really great talk. I wanted to ask, how do you kind of stop, like when you do a passion project, oftentimes it requires money, or if you have a client involved. I found that for me, I sometimes lose my vision because I'm letting the client dictate, because like you need to make money obviously, but you also want to pursue your passion. So how have you kind of balanced the two and made them work?
So I was very lucky when I was in university because I had a student loan, RIP. But when I was taking pictures, I always had two separate things. Like I said, I was there for the DJ and there for the promoter, where I took like really colourful, like almost like club pictures of people smiling, people drinking like WKDs, and people laughing at drum and bass raves, which is a bit mad. But then what I also sent them was my black and white work. And I kind of kept those two separate on purpose and kept that distinction where the main thing is I always needed to make sure I get paid at the end of this, and then make sure I get those pictures. But it's hard because a lot of the time these clients, especially the bigger clients, are like, "Oh, we need to make this look bigger. We need these to make look less dirty," and it's like it's impossible. You're in this box full of like sweat and like half naked men. How do you make it look better? And it's just like these things always kind of affect your judgment, but kind of staying true to your visual identity. Is like how would your pictures looked in the past, and how do you want them to look in the future, and how they stay kind of consistent. And they may change, may develop in style, but the context stays consistent. And it's hard, but it's always kind of like how I feel. It's like leaving your images to archive and breathe, especially if you shoot digitally. They're like right at the back of the screen, and even with film you can get potentially within like an hour or so. But when you're photographing digitally, I always try to leave my images for like a day or so. And now, especially these raves, I'm trying to leave it for a year, so I forget about what I've done completely. And when I look at it with fresh eyes, a fresh identity, and edit it how I want and how I want it to look consistently. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, it was great. It gave me some good ideas.
Hi. Could you talk a bit more about like pitching, like what's important when you're pitching to clients and stuff like that?
Of course. So I think pitching is kind of like overly hyped, especially in what you need to include. But it's like what I always try to do is keep it as short, as sweet as possible, because when you see like a really big wordy email, I think everyone gets quite anxious, and like having to read that on a phone or a laptop, you're like, oh, this is a lot of words. And what I always try to do is say intro, hey Jamie, like Jamie's the guy from Vice, so it's like, how are you, hope all is well. I saw this anti-vax protest going, I'm already going, do you want any pictures? And it could be as formal as that, depending on if you know the person. But if it's like a first intro, I'll intro myself and say, hey, I'm a photographer, I do this. I've attached my work in a PDF, which is easy to view in a phone. I'm interested in covering this. Would you be interested? Let me know. Keep it like really short and like really formal, but not too formal that it makes you sound like you're almost away from your artistry, because they want to see your artistry shine through. But keep it short, keep it sweet, like keep it simple, stupid. I think that's what I saw in the office. That's what kind of stayed, and like the who, what, why, where, and when. If you can include that within like less than 5 sentences, then you're sorted. And like don't overly complicate it, because again, if an editor sees like a big wordy email, they're not going to have time to respond or even like look at it. And if your attachments are too big to open on a phone, a lot of people won't care, they'll move on. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, like, how do people feel with you photographing them? Like, obviously, drum and bass raves are quite messy. Like, where's the like line of, I guess, like, how do you photograph people that are like on drugs without like making them feel like, I don't know,
Well, I think
taken advantage of, basically?
well, completely. There is, especially because I'm like teetotal. I'm at these events. I'm like just very sober, boring person. But there's an ethics line. I think when it comes to all photography, there's an ethics line we need to be aware of. And when I see a group of kids like doing lines, and I look at the picture in my head, I'm like, oh, that'll be a great picture. And they look at me, and I take it anyway. And they approach me like, oh, we don't want our parents to see that. I'm like, cool, I understand. And I explain to them the story. They want me to delete it, I'll delete it. But if I see a picture which I know I won't see again, because at these events you always see like kids doing drugs. Yeah. But I see a picture, but I know I won't see it again. Like at the beginning, I showed a couple tying, a guy tying his girlfriend's shoelaces. I've never seen that since, and it's like such a cool moment. I took that picture, and they looked at me, and I looked at their eyes. I'm like, oh shit! And I kind of smiled and gave them a nod. I showed them the picture as well, and it always helps me showing the picture because they know what I'm seeing, and they can see what I'm trying to do immediately, because on the back of my camera I shoot straight into black and white, which throws people off because they don't see the color image. They're like, oh, your camera's broken and old. I'm like, yeah, I know. But they see what I'm doing isn't to glorify drug use, to glorify what they look like. And like almost like take the piss, but they see that it's almost like a more of a longevity thing. Like I say, I'm not going to post them, and I also say I can share these images with you. And it's about trusting, like giving all their trust and letting them trust me, and like me trusting them enough that I can take these pictures. And it's over time where people kind of like can see me, and I can you can gauge a situation as well. and like gauge the temperament of the people around you, and how if people are like moving mad, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to take these pictures. But if you see like a guy doing a handstand on like a dance floor, you're like, I have to do this. And like it's always, again, you can always apologize after. You can never ask permission for the first time or second time. So it's, if at worst case as well, people could ask to delete it. If you shoot film, you've got that great excuse. I've got film, can't delete the film. But it's not a great excuse actually. But like it's always you have to balance your like ethical morals and kind of like push the limits on what you want to do, and always apologize after it if the worst case scenario. Like, what's the worst that can happen apart from getting beaten up at a rave, which has never happened before? I swear. I hope that's helped.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks very much for the talk. It's really interesting. You sort of mentioned a little bit about sort of still struggling for people paying you, whether that's after the event or I don't know if it's still sort of in the talks before you actually do jobs. I'm not in this industry, but I do photography, and it's still, I think it's my full-time job, and it's something that I really am excited about, but it's difficult when you feel like you're pricing yourself out of things by expecting a reasonable thing when some people are willing to do it for less. Sort of what would you advise with that, and how would you?
What, like there's I know there's always that thing where if I turn down a job because the pay is too less for me, and the cost of living, you need to be aware about your overheads and everything. You need to be aware about what you're spending and what you need to survive, just besides your pictures. But I know there's photographers who are like behind me who are willing to do a job for free, and it's something that you have to be ready to take the L, because there's photographers that want that experience that you had when you were 5 years ago. Like I did jobs for free, but I potentially priced people out I wasn't aware of. But it's something that we have to be aware of. Like people are less willing, especially in the music industry, people are less willing to pay in advance because they haven't got ticket sales in, and these promoters won't get their ticket sales in until after the event, and that could be a week, that could be 4 months, and in some cases it could be a year. But like having like contracts ready is something quite important, and it puts a lot of people off, and in a good way, it puts a lot of the bad clients off. Because if they're not willing to sign a contract, they're not willing to pay you on time, is how I see it. And if you can get paid half in advance, then I think you're halfway there getting like a good long-term client. Because there's people out there that once they get the pictures, ghost it. And I'm sure people have experienced that. And it's like, if you half deliver the images, half get paid. Deliver the other half, get paid again. If you have to hold images ransom as well until you get paid, it's stuff that we have to still deal with, and it's almost like jumping through loops, or even like being part of the union doesn't even help with these promoters. But it's almost like gauging what they've done in the past, and if they're a viable business, or if it's just some guy paying cash at these events. And it's something that we have to always constantly be on the ball and be ready to like see, like gauge situations, because some promoters are willing to be really open and pay half in advance, sign a contract, make sure you're credited and tagged, and other people, they see that and they're like, no, you're too business, I'm just going to go for this guy who's going to do it on his iPhone. And if that's the case, then so be it. To me, I feel like I missed out on, I'm not going to get all that heartache, all that stress chasing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you go about pricing yourself when you're first starting out?
So when I first started these music events, like my first rave, I said, the promoter asked me, how much do you charge? I was like, 70 quid, so that's too much. How's 50? I'm like, hell yeah, 50 quid, that's great. And then over time you speak to other people, you kind of look at, like I said, you look at your overheads, you look at what you're spending to be there, your travel, your time editing, and you're like, oh, if this is costing me like 10 hours of my like schedule to be here and edit this, I need to charge for those 10 hours as well. And over time you say, like, my rates for advice will be like completely, this is true, like it can start off at like, my when I first started was like £60 a day, and for like a multi-billion pound company, mad, but that was through COVID, so I kind of understand. But now it's like 250 is like for like a half day rate as just taking pictures, and they want like 4 pictures, so that's a really good rate. But then other people like Mixmag, another magazine, will say, oh, we charge everyone £125, which is almost a quarter. It's not as much, but it's like, again, they want very little. But then at these festivals, at these raves, they haven't got the budget for that much, which is crazy. But they also have to pay a lot more people. So you see at these music events, I'll charge a lot less, but I'll do a lot more for the artist there. So I'll charge like £130 for like a rave, but also go to the DJs directly saying, I'm going to photograph your set, each, give me £30. And you get paid £90 for each DJs, plus the 130, you make a lot more, and it kind of goes into doing more than you're asked. And it's a lot more work, and it's a lot challenging, but you build that relationship with not only the promoter, but with DJs as well, who then want you for their stuff, building that longevity relationship. But starting off at like 250 for like a half day rate, all the way to like 700, 800, depending on the client, and it's always seeing what they have to offer, and always ask if they have a budget, always. It kind of goes into contracts as well. They have a budget, they're willing to sign a contract, and they're willing to be a bit better to kind of find a suitable rate for you, but works for them. And it's always about balance. Some people might not pay the same for the same thing, but other people are willing to like name you a price. If you want like £4,000 a day, they'll just do that because they want you there. If anyone's willing to pay that much, let me know.
I wanted to ask as well, when it comes to kind of like, again, because I'm starting out and I'm currently trying to find like my style when it comes to editing, do you have any advice on that?
Yes, I think like when like shooting and editing, I'd say try everything until you may not like it, but just try everything. Like it could be all aspects of photography, like even sports to like music. Like I've done everything, and when like editing, it's really hard to find that niche. But it's like seeing work you like, be it like stuff on film, stuff digital, or like stuff like digitally edited, and seeing how you could combine elements of these photographers you like and then make it your own. And I think what people need to remember is like nothing's original. Like stuff I've done, people have done it before, and stuff that you've seen, it's been done before. And if you're combining like 2 or 3 ideas together, what you have there is an original idea. It's an original look, and it's about finding these photographers or visual like styles you like, and then making it yourself. And it takes a while, but it kind of building up that like style, building up your like visual eye, and how that kind of transforms over time. And it could be a few weeks, but it's like keeping at it and keeping like always willing to learn and be wrong at the edit and say, I'm going to start fresh, I'm going to look at it this way, I'm going to turn it black and white, I'm going to make it sepia if you want, and just trying new things and trying combining styles and ideas.
Thanks again for coming. Oh, awesome.
Just a quick question. So like you said you like to be conspicuous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like not be seen. So I'm thinking, when you shoot in the club, do you use flash? If
Oh,
so, how do you do that? Respectfully and conspicuously, how do you do that?
So, being quite technical in the way I photograph, I use off-camera flash. I have, you guys are really interested, but I'll have like a flash in my left hand and my camera in my right hand, and I'll kind of just like walk around. I'm always in black, so in a club I basically look invisible, and I'm quite short, so I can just like weasel my way through big crowds quite easily, which is great. But like if I see something, I'll take a picture, and I won't hold my flash directly at the people, because I feel like that it's very invasive. But what I will do is hold it above them, and what these guys see, they look at me, and I'm holding my hand above their head, and they look up and then look down at me, and that's when I take the picture. Is when they're almost like a bit, not starstruck, that's a bad word to use, a bit dazed. They see a big like flash going above their head, and they look down at me. It's like, what is this guy doing? And then that's when I take the picture, because it comes from above them. So it's always almost above or to the side, where it's not very invasive, it's not at their face. And even if it is quite direct, I stand far enough back and I can bounce the flash in a certain way where it's not going to blind you. And in a pitch black rave, I think that's really important, because I don't want to be like a paparazzi, like flashing people with a camera. Thank you. I don't want to be like blinding people, because I feel like that kind of takes away from the experience of a rave. I kind of want to I don't want people to not enjoy themselves. I don't want to gatekeep that. But if I see something they're doing, I want to take that, and then if they ask me what I'm doing, I'll show them. And I always show them, because I think that kind of keeps that intimacy strong, it keeps that trust there. And if they say, oh, you blinded me with my flash, I'll apologize like 12 times. Yeah.
I think that's it. So thank you for coming. We do have the space until 2, and we have some TPF zines and some of Yushy's zines as well. We've got dance floor etiquette and rave delivery. Yeah, so stick around, and thank you.
Thank you.